see some of these really big families. You never do that. You never stay I mean,
oh, cool. You guys are going to record this?
Yeah, no, it's streaming it.
Well, it will be recorded on YouTube, so we're live streaming it.
Okay. So I don't need to hold up my phone? Oh.
No.
Okay.
No.
Thanks.
First of all,
It's 8 o'clock.
yes.
Using light.
Well, it's not easy to make, right?
Yep.
Yeah, text me if you need anything. Yep. I'll just watch the stream downstairs.
ladies and gentlemen, where is the attendance sheet right now? Here. Great, thank you. Attendance sheet before you leave, okay? It is slowly making its way around. I'm just waiting another minute because it is 8 o'clock. And you know what happens for the first period of the day, right? You guys all come on time, I can see that. All right then, it's my pleasure then to start us out this morning with a presentation by Nicole Jonathan. And I'm guessing from the people who are here that you are well aware of what this presentation is about. But it is about the new Humanities to an Action course and probably how it was put together, correct? So it's going to be very, very good. I'm looking forward to hearing this. And maybe let's give a little round of applause just for
Okay, so before we start, you might be wondering what the pieces of paper are. So those are just a little condensed version of our curriculum, so you can refer to that throughout if you're interested.
Okay, so as Ms. Taylor said, this presentation is going to be about Humanities to an Action, about what our course is and kind of the process that we went through to create it. So to introduce it at first, the reason we created Humanities to an Action as a continuation to Humanities 1 in Action, because we all took Humanities 1 in Action and we really enjoy the type of learning that we got from that and the experiences and the feeling that when we left Humanities 1 in Action, we felt like we really wanted a continuation to the class. And spoiler alert, the class got passed early this academic year. And so next year there will be a 2-credit course running. This is in the academic handbook of 2018 to 2019. And as you can see, it's an alternative to Humanities 2. And that's the course description, so you're free to go look at that if you want to.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about why each of us got involved. So as you can see from this picture, we were all in the same Humanities 1 in Action class, and we had Mr. Kirsten. And after that year, for myself, I think Humanities 1 in Action is one of the most impactful and interesting classes that I've taken in high school. And I still really think about some of the things that we learned in that class. I think about the ethical dilemmas we were asked to consider, like if you're a train driver and you're going on a track that's gonna kill 3 people, or you could turn the track and kill 1 person, and you kind of have to consider your own morals and ethics. And I just really loved that it challenged me as a person.
And for me, I went into high school feeling like super confused about everything. I mean, as a freshman, my mood was entirely confused. And when we were presented with these huge world issues in Humanities 1 in Action, I was like, well, okay, well, I'm like one person. What am I supposed to do about this, you know? And then by the end of the course, I kind of felt like I was capable of envisioning like my own role, like what steps that I could take personally. And that was so important for me because it challenged me and it made me feel capable of becoming someone that I really wanted to be.
And for me personally, like Nicole and Matea, I felt really impacted by the Hum 1 in Action course after I took it in freshman year. And after going into sophomore year, taking Hum 2, the courses are just so different that it was sort of a shock for me to adjust to the new type of education that was presented in sophomore year. So I really thought that it was a shame that there wasn't a Humanities 2 in Action course existing, and then that's really what sort of drove all of us to try to create this course. All right, so now we're going to talk about the timeline and the overall process it took to create this course. I have a video loaded of the calendar, but then I'll just go out and just show you the actual calendar itself. Okay, so this process started in July, August of 2016. I was at a Brown University summer program that asked us to create an action plan to take back to our school community to implement. So try to address one of the problems that we saw within our school community. So the problem that I thought existed was that there wasn't any sort of follow-up to the Hum 1 in Action course. And I thought, I know that the humanities teachers had tried to propose Hum 2 in Action 4 years ago and 10 years ago, but that both attempts had failed. So what are some other options that we can explore through this process? So I came back to school with this question in mind, and the first meeting I had in August 23rd was with Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Kirsten, where I asked, so Hum 2 in Action didn't work, but what are some other avenues that we can explore to sort of lead to a similar experience to Hum 1 in Action for sophomores, juniors, and seniors? So after talking to them, they told me to go out and sort of talk to people who had taken Hum 1 in Action before and other teachers, and that's what I spent around this period of time doing. Admittedly, I was also pretty unproductive, which is why you don't really see any meetings, because I was trying to balance the rigors of junior year along with this project. And then after talking to old classmates and friends who had taken Hum 1 in Action, other students started showing interest in joining this project, which is how Matea and Nicole got involved. And this meeting here was sort of how the first meeting we had as a team, and this is when Hum 2 in Action became a team effort. And you'll notice that the titles here don't say Hum 2 in Action, they say Continuing Action, because that was the name that we had for this project before it really morphed into Hum 2 in Action, because we started this project not knowing what form this follow-up would take. We knew that Hum 2 in Action hadn't worked before, so we didn't want to limit ourselves to this idea. So as a group, we met up through the next few months, just trying to brainstorm ideas on our own. But it was around this point where we realized that it wouldn't be enough for us to just brainstorm ideas on our own. We had to really go out into the Hum department and talk with different teachers and sort of try to get their ideas on what was possible. So this period of time, from this meeting onwards, was spent talking to humanities teachers, trying to coalesce their ideas together. And then we came back around this point of time to sort of talk about the ideas that we had come up with, that we had gathered from teachers. And a few weeks later, we met with Mr. Schmidt in person, and we decided that the time was right to pursue a Hum to an Action course. And this is really when we committed ourselves to pursuing, to creating this curriculum. So the last few weeks of junior year and the first week of summer vacation, you can see here, was really spent on gathering ideas from teachers for a Hum to an Action curriculum, as well as designing the actual curriculum itself. So here you see this blue bar over here. This period of time was the first 2 weeks of summer vacation where Nicole, Matea, and Miona, a former student, we basically locked ourselves in a room up in the 6th floor and spent 2 solid weeks just writing out the curriculum and hammering it out. And then these few weeks, we took a break, and then we came back for the start of senior year, where we continued to make revisions to the curriculum, designing revisions to the curriculum, and etc. And then in November, this was when we pitched the proposal to the humanities department, and luckily got passed. And then from then on, it's just been doing miscellaneous things such as the academic marketplace, which you saw in the first slide. And then that brings us to here. So this is just sort of like a screenshot of the 2 moments where we found out that the curriculum passed. So the first slide over here is when we found out that the curriculum had passed through the comm department. Yeah, so obviously we were really excited. We found out that 90% of the teachers had voted in favor of the proposal, which was really good. And then this was the moment we sort of found out that the administration had passed the proposal as well. And then this is just a screenshot of the initial phase where I was in the start of our junior year, where I was reaching out to our ex-classmates to see what they thought.
So here we're just going to show you a brief video of the curriculum document. So we were basically working on this all throughout junior year and until we presented this to the humanities department. So you'll just see we kind of broke it up into different units, and then we had essential questions, enduring understandings. We chose different resources to use and different experiential learning outings where we went out and did some different types of service. So we did this for all the units, and this took up a lot of our time throughout junior year and the beginning of senior year. And this is our presentation to the humanities department. So we're just going to show you a few, I guess, highlights of this presentation. And we did run out of time, which you'll see at the end, but I think this was kind of the culminating effort of our whole project, so we thought we should show you a bit of this. Hi, I'm And our proposed course is Humanities to an Action, which would serve as an alternate option for sophomores to the existing American Studies curriculum.
So these are the 2 through lines that would really permeate throughout the whole course. And at its core, this course is about myths. So it talks about how myths apply to both America and to students on a personal level.
So for our second unit, America and the Environment, the first question deals with whether we are living in harmony or domination of nature. And we want students to understand, in America, they have 2 divergent attitudes that were very rooted in history. The first one being the Judeo-Christian one, which sees the environment as God's creation for humans to use and to make their own. And the second one being influenced by the Transcendentalists, which see the environment as something that is independent from human usage.
So the third unit is called American Mosaic, and it's a bit of a blend of the foundings of America and then some of the different groups that have emerged throughout American history.
Sorry, how much time do we have?
2 minutes. Thank you so much.
So for the rest of the presentation, we'll be showing sort of small things that we did or evidence of things that we did throughout this process. So one of the things we did towards like the later stages this semester after we approved the course, after the course had been approved, was Mr. Schmidt was invited to Chinese University of Hong Kong to give a lecture on student participation in curriculum design, which he saw Hum to in Action as a good example of. So Mr. Schmidt asked the three of us to sort of make a video talking about Hum to in Action, what it is, and the process of creating this course. So we'll just show some snippets of that video from here.
Hi, I'm Nicole, and Matea, Jonathan, and I started this Humanities to an Action project when we were in the middle of our junior year. The premise of Humanities to an Action is for students to understand the role of myth in America's history and how it has influenced the present-day situation, and for them to also analyze the role of myth in their own personal life and in their own personal culture.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I'd first like to talk about how the idea of Humanities to an Action originated in the first place and what inspired us as students to go out and try to create a course. The three that designed Humanities to an Action as a direct continuation to a course that we took in freshman.
Hi, I'm Matea, and I'm going to be talking about the impact that us finding our own student voice had on the creation of this class. For all the members of our group, this was our first time taking on such a large-scale project that was completely student-run and could leave a more lasting impact at our school. So the first step was to kind of find our own voice as students in the process. So I think the first.
Okay, so Dr. Schmidt was a huge help throughout this process, being the fact that he was one of like the main founders of Humanities One in Action. And he has this blog where he writes about his own personal development as well as like what's happening around his life. And he wrote a blog post about us creating Humanities to an Action. And you can search up Marty Schmidt in Asia and then search within the search bar like Humanities to an Action, or we could give you a link after the presentation. But we're just really thankful that you've helped us to put it out there and help us throughout this process.
So now I'll just talk about some preconceptions and misconceptions that we had throughout this process. So the first preconception that we had was that the idea would not change, like that it would stay static throughout the whole process. So this is, I guess, this was a misconception that I had at first. Like going into junior year, I had some ideas about what form this follow-up to Humanities in Action could take. And I thought that, after getting this idea, it would just be like a straight process, that this idea would not change and we would just like execute this idea. But of course that was really, that was just totally the opposite of what actually happened, because the idea, after consulting with different teachers, sort of like lobbying to get their ideas, like the idea changed so much, and then it morphed into Hum to an Action, which none of us had expected at the start of our junior years. The second misconception is that the designing the curriculum would be straightforward. We thought we'd just like sort of, sit in a room for 5 days straight and then just like hammer out this curriculum, but it wasn't, because when we were working on the curriculum at first, within our own team, we had some issues with like group dynamics, because like some of us had different working styles than others, and then it sort of came, there was sort of like a logjam at first, but then we worked this out in the end, unfortunately. And the third misconception we had was that the course was guaranteed to pass, because we'd heard a lot of like positive feedback from the humanities department, and we thought that it would sort of, it was guaranteed to pass. But after our presentation, especially after being cut off, we were really worried that like we weren't able to present our idea fully, and then we were just worried that it wasn't going to pass.
So I'm going to talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses that we felt our group had throughout this project. So I think our biggest strength was probably our commitment and passion to this project. We all kind of felt like this was probably the best group that we've ever really worked in. Because sometimes when we do group work, we feel like it's like we have to force people to do things and they just don't want to do it, and that was totally not the case with our group here. And I think another strength was that we all kind of bring different things to the table. I would say I'm pretty good at like organizing and keeping people on track. I think Nicole was able to help a lot with the resources because she likes to read and she takes classes like Dr. Schmidt's SSS class. And I think Jonathan always kind of questioned what we were doing and if there were any flaws and things that we needed to consider. So I think that balance was really helpful. And I think another positive of our group was that we were all really flexible, especially at the beginning when the course just kept changing and there were different forms. We were all really open to this, and we also didn't get discouraged if we heard some bad feedback from teachers or they didn't like what we were doing. I think our weaknesses were actually, there were less weaknesses than strengths, but for sure we have slightly different working styles, and some of us maybe like to meet after school, others like to work later at night, so we kind of had to reconcile these. And I think the final slight issue I guess we had was that we're all pretty good friends, so occasionally we got a little bit distracted, but we still stayed on track pretty well. So some of the challenges or difficulties, obviously we're all really busy, and I think this is the case with all group senior projects, but it was a bit hard to find time. But as you can see, the solution was that a lot of times we just Skyped and we had a lot of fun, and it turned out pretty well. And I think another difficulty was that, I think Jonathan briefly mentioned this, but at the beginning we didn't feel like we were being completely heard by the humanities department, and I think this was just kind of our own paranoia, but we just kind of let everything take its course and it turned out really well, so yeah.
So about student voice, I mean, the majority of us here in this room are students, and maybe if you're thinking of doing something similar, these could be some helpful things to remember. The first thing I would say is that teachers will be your most your most important resource. Like, you cannot do this without teachers in any way or form, because they are specialists at exactly what they do. Like, you can go to them during after school hours or you just email them, and most of them are so happy to help you because they like to see that students are inspired this way. So like, yeah, teachers are really important throughout this process. And also, we were really distanced from school politics, as in like we didn't have to worry about keeping our job or like the internal structure of the school, you know, like we just could focus on creating this curriculum and really making it like out of our own passion. So that really helped us a lot. Also, I think it's good to remember that as students, you won't immediately get the same respect as a teacher because like we're not teachers, we're not qualified professionals, like we're not specialists. But that does give you, the fact that you're not a specialist gives you an advantage as well, because you can talk to those specialists, which are teachers, and when other teachers see that certain teachers believe in you enough to back you up, like Dr. Schmidt, Mr. Kirsten, Mr. Oliver, and Ms. Wheatley, they really believed in us and backed us up, and that helped us to gain legitimacy, like in the eyes of other teachers, and that was really helpful for us. So the last thing I really want to say is to believe in your project, because if you you really have to believe in this kind of thing, because there's so many chances where it could go wrong, and so many times like it's such a long process where you could lose faith in it. And if you believe in it, you'll inspire like other people to support you, and people will be able to tell like how much you really want this, and